That's how it's supposed to work. A little glitch there to start. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Raw Prospect Podcast. Saturday, June 8th, about 9 p.m. My name is Michael Ween, live atop a hot and humid Houston, Texas. Somewhat rainy as well every once in a while. As we enter the summer months, we are officially in what I would say the thick of baseball season. I know the NBA Finals just got started basically, and there's another game tomorrow, and that'll go on for another week or so, week and a half. I know there's the Hockey Stanley Cup final that started tonight, but really, with the College World Series fast approaching and entering the summer months of June, July, and August, going into the football season, I consider this now to really be baseball season. So today, we are promptly going to talk about Major League Baseball. We have a fun episode for you guys planned today. We're asking some burning questions about the season so far, some buy or sell questions, and we're going to conclude with a really interesting conversation about Major League Baseball and does it have an issue? Is it facing a reckoning with legalized gambling, with some of the news lately? And it should be a nice, compact, but informative and fun conversation as we get started here on this beautiful Saturday. With all that being said, make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check out our other content coming and our past content. We're going to have Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports right after this for you guys as of right now. And then my guess is we'll have our U.S. Open preview on Monday. We'll probably have one or two more dit holes. I go out of town next Saturday, so there will be a stretch of like 5 days where there probably won't be any content unless Emmy does something on his own or with somebody else. But we're going to try to backload some content. There will also be an NBA episode mixed in there. So let me go ahead and welcome in my co-host, a man of many obligations, and a man that's, I think, finally into the thick of his, I guess, I don't want to say career, but into the thick of baseball now. Like, you've done this a couple seasons now. You kind of know the flow of baseball season, and we're going to have some fun tonight. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to answer some of these questions tonight. These questions, I think, like, Michael put a lot of thought into making these. I was impressed when I heard the list that he ended up coming up with, and I think you'll be surprised by some of the answers tonight too. Like, there's some intriguing conversation coming up, so stay tuned.
We have player-related questions. We have lineup-related questions. We've got contending team-related questions. We've got trade deadline-related questions. And we have, like, legalized questions, legalized gambling questions. So we've got 8 questions in total. Some are more open-ended, as you'll see. Others are buy or sell form. Some will be answered quicker than others. But I tried to come up with questions that you can answer in multiple ways, not just kind of one-sided questions, although there is probably one or two that are more one-sided than the others. So let's go ahead and get started. We here on the Raw Prospect Podcast cover 2 main drafts. We cover the NFL draft extensively, and we cover the NBA draft also, not as extensively as the NFL, but we still cover it, right? Because we love basketball. We have not ever covered really the Major League Baseball draft. I would like to cover it a little more this year than in past years, not super extensively or anything, but at least a little bit more conversation around it than we have in past years because it is a pretty deep draft class from my understanding. So our first question, with the college baseball regionals, of course, going on, who should be the number 1 overall pick in next month's 2024 Major League Baseball draft? There's a deep pool of college talent, along with some good high school talent that are available projected to go high in this year's draft. So I can start with you, Emmy. Do you have a direct answer to this question, or um, if you want, you can maybe mention a couple guys that you have your eye on?
Well, I had the notes in front of me, but I think that my page is glitching. But for me, I had the kid out of Oregon State as my number one overall pick. I think him, at second base and what he presents as a hitter offensively, he throws right-handed, bats left-handed, um, has, you know, really good bat speed, controls the strike zone. Um, he doesn't strike out much. He's on base like all the time, man. And the big deal with him is, I mean, he's 6 foot and he's got that like compact build, and he packs a lot of power, man. He presents a pretty small strike zone because of his height and you know I guess physical build. And I think his potential is, someone who's going to go into the MLB, like perennially, get 25 home runs, get on base consistently, rarely strike out. I mean, he's going to be a really, really good player, man.
Yes, Travis Bazana is who you are, in fact, referring to, the second baseman for the Oregon State Beavers, who is on my top 3 list and is in serious consideration for being that top guy. He's got the power for the major leagues. He's got an elite pitch selection, knows when to swing, doesn't chase too much, and he's pretty good at everything else. He's got plus raw power, good pitch selection. He runs above average, good base runner. He needs to improve his bat to ball skill, but it's not something that's going to kill him at the next level. I think he'll be a fast riser once he gets drafted, and I definitely think he'll be a top 5 pick. I think from what I know, he's been one of the best players in college baseball this year. But he's keeping pace with another guy I like to mention, Charlie Condon, the third baseman for the Georgia Bulldogs, at the top of Division I in OPS, which is always a good sign. And that kind of stuff, getting on base, slugging, always translates to the major leagues. Charlie Condon was another guy that I have on my radar, just because when you think about who won the 2024 lottery in Major League Baseball, it's the Cleveland Guardians, and what they need, in my opinion, is more power in their lineup. And they need to get a little younger in their lineup as well. I know they have some young talent, but Charlie Condon, he is raw power. He's just raw power. He leads Division I in homers this year. He needs to improve defensively at third base. He is a corner outfielder, but he's got plus raw power that he gets into in games, solid bat to ball ability, and he's above average at pretty much everything when he's in the batter's box. And he's got some defensive value at third base. He'll need to improve there, but not everyone comes up to the major leagues perfect. And I think you put him in a minor league system for 1 or 2 years with the power at the plate that he showed the last year and a half at Georgia. He has a chance to be a fast riser to the major leagues. And the last guy I had my eye on for right now, with the little research I've done, but knowing that I have done some, is going to be Jack Caglione from the Florida Gators, who are still, in fact, in the regional and did win today over Clemson in game one of that regional. He's a two-way star. That's the draw here with Jack Caglione. Some call him Jack Jack. He has a bunch of nicknames that we'll probably get into in another episode. But he's a two-way star, very clear set of elite skills. He does have some weaknesses. He's got probably the most power of the guys that we've discussed. He's a combined package that we really haven't seen in the draft in years. He runs pretty well. He is a first baseman, so I think he's going to be locked into a corner outfield position at the next level. I don't know that he provides you too much versatility, what he can give you defensively. And he does chase a lot outside the strike zone. But from what I've seen from him with the pitching and the hitting, you'd be getting a two-way guy who might not end up being a two-way guy at the next level. And it certainly probably won't be someone like Shohei Ohtani, who potentially is already the greatest player we've ever seen. But you have options there. Like, he could become one of the best power-hitting infielders in the major leagues. He has that kind of raw power. Or you can mold him into some kind of pitcher, whether that be a starter or, a high-end bullpen guy. So I think you got a lot of versatility there with Jack Caglione. Those would be the three guys I'm thinking about, but there are tons of others that we'll mention when we get closer to the draft, which is in mid-July, that I think, will be really good players at the next level. Do you have anything else you want to add to that before we move to our next question?
Well, those last two guys you mentioned, I think they have the kind of, I guess, Aaron Judge type of build, I guess, with less filled out in terms of muscle and like weight wise, but the height, the power, it's all already there. And they can take a pitch outside of the zone, not hit it well, and still just eke it out like with enough power to get out there, man. Like it's really impressive.
All right. Now we get into some more Major League Baseball kind of questions. Now, there is a big series going on this weekend. The Los Angeles Dodgers are facing the New York Yankees in the Bronx in a 3-game series. So this question kind of comes from that, but it's also two contenders, knowing that this weekend, from what we've seen so far, could be a World Series preview. Better top third of the lineup, Dodgers or Yankees? And there's a couple ways to answer this question, in my opinion. The Dodgers, obviously, you have Mookie Betts, who's won an MVP. Shohei Ohtani, who's won an MVP. Actually, 2 for that matter. And Freddie Freeman, who has won an MVP and a World Series title. For the Yankees, you have rising star Anthony Volpe. Juan Soto, who's one of the best hitters at his age for his generation and in baseball history, which I'll detail later. And then Aaron Judge, who's obviously holds the American League home run record all time with that 62 home run season 2 years ago, and has also won an MVP. So, better top of the lineup, Dodgers or Yankees?
For me, I lean with the Dodgers, man. I think, outside of Shohei Ohtani, you look at Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. Those are two guys that have done it on the biggest stages, like World Series, deliver time and time again, man. And, Shohei, he's a dude that obviously can't pitch this year and is just focusing on batting. And he stepped up his batting to an even higher level. Like it's insane what he's doing right now. He had an at bat yesterday, I think, where I can't remember the pitcher's name. You probably know better than I do since you're a Yankees fan. But I think one of y'all's young pitchers, he was throwing the fastball at Ohtani, and Ohtani timed it up nailed one middle of center field, and I mean, he just has it, whatever it is, man. Like there's no explaining further that's needed than that. And I'm not saying that those Yankees guys don't, but I think that combination on the Dodgers, I think, I just lean with them just because of what they've done in the playoffs between Betts and Freeman, and then what I think Ohtani will do when he gets there. But I mean, you can go either way here.
Well, last night, Ohtani went 0 for 5, so you might be referring to another at bat a couple of days ago because he did not get a hit last night. But what I will say is I do agree with you in principle. You take the Dodgers lineup because it's 3 MVPs. Mookie Betts is proven in the playoffs. Freddie Freeman is also proven in the playoffs. Those two guys are World Series champions. And we've yet to see Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs, but we think we know what he will do when it comes time for the playoffs. Because so far in his career in the regular season, he's been great when it's mattered the most. And he is, like, in my opinion, the best player ever that we've ever seen. Not in terms of career accomplishments yet, but I mean, the contract that he got speaks for itself. However, I will say that if I'm taking one of these two lineups so far this season, I did some numbers crunching. If I'm building my team, I would take all these guys. I mean, all of them are great, and I would definitely take the Dodgers lineup provided that they're healthy. And another area where I think the Dodgers have a slight edge is, although, Aaron Judge is awesome and has been awesome still, he still leads the majors in homers this year, despite a slow start in April. He's on the plus side of 30, and he's had some injuries. Some of them not entirely his fault and his own doing, but that is a slight concern. Juan Soto, although he's missed last night and tonight with some forearm soreness that luckily for the Yankees isn't serious, he's just resting, which kind of takes a little bit of the air out of this Yankees-Dodgers series, given that he's not playing, has been super durable throughout his career. And this is the first time he's missing games since like 2019, 2020, I think. So he's been durable, and Volpe, of course, being young, he's durable as well. This season, though, I did some numbers crunching. I combined the Dodgers' top 3 and the Yankees' top 3. So I added up their home runs, their RBIs, their doubles, their triples. I averaged out their batting averages, their slash lines, and their OPS pluses. So these are some interesting stats here. The Dodgers' top third through 65 games coming into tonight, a 305 batting average. That's all three guys put together. 113 RBIs, 48 doubles, 7 triples, 33 homers, a 397 on base percentage, which is really damn good, 522 slugging percentage, a 919 OPS, and a 161 OPS plus. Really damn good. Like, really good. Elite. The Yankees' top 3, though, so far this season, in 65 games, so it is a fair, equal comparison here. 299 batting average, 133 RBIs, 41 doubles, 10 triples, 41 home runs, a 401 on base percentage, a 568 slugging percentage, a 969 OPS, and a 172 OPS plus. And Aaron Judge and Juan Soto are the only guys in Major League Baseball that are one dotting in OPS. So even though I'm taking the Dodgers in principle, that lineup over the Yankees, if I'm starting a team. This season, with the stats, with the data that we have, and also given that I think the Yankees' top three gives you a little bit more defensive value than the Dodgers. I mean, Freddie Freeman, good first baseman. Mookie Betts is playing second this year. It's not the easiest of positions, but it's not shortstop that Anthony Volpe is playing at a Gold Glove level at, and it's not center field, which Aaron Judge is playing pretty much nightly. Those are the two hardest defensive positions in baseball, if you ask me, aside from catcher. I would lean slightly towards the Yankees based on the 40% sample so far this season, given the data that we have. But overall, in the grand scheme of things, I'm leaning Dodgers. And I think that's a fair way to answer the question. All right. Is that all we need to say on that question? Do you have anything else to add there?
Yeah, I think that's it, man. I think your point on Volpe being, a gold level shortstop. I mean, that's totally fair point there. I mean, that's something that's probably not brought up enough with how good he's been defensively.
All right. Buy or sell? Came up with this question. Thinking about it today. The Yankees re-signing, without knowing anything else, the Yankees re-signing Juan Soto is the singularly most important move that can be made this offseason. Buy or sell?
Okay. For me to answer this question, I gotta ask you a couple things. You're the Yankees fan. You're the expert. I got a couple of caveats here. So, is Volpe locked up under contract for a few years?
He's on his rookie deal, and
okay,
he's got years,
2 or 3 years already locked.
He's got years of control. He's got a couple more years before they're going to have to extend him.
Yeah, I mean, that I think makes this answer absolutely yes. I think the longer you can keep those three that we've just talked about together, that's the main priority, man. And the Yankees, obviously, with how much money they're willing to spend, how much money they have, you're gonna go out and get pitchers or whatever, and fill this lineup out however you want to do it. But those three guys, those are your three stars. Those are your main three guys. And then, of course, we're not even mentioning the Martian in all of this as well. Can't remember what his actual name is, but I just know he's the Martian, and that nickname speaks for itself. He's an alien. I mean, once he gets back healthy, what does that part look like as well? So, for me, yes, 100%. I can't really think of any other storyline that's really bigger because the Yankees being contenders is good for baseball. That's just the bottom line, whether you love them or hate them.
Yes, you answered it perfectly. This is the one answer that I think you can actually get wrong in the set of questions we have here. It's an absolute buy. I don't know how you say it's not a buy. And beyond what you said, which is absolutely correct, it's safe to say that he has transformed what the Yankees were last year into a top three offense in Major League Baseball. They lead all of baseball, at least coming into this Dodgers series, in runs per game. And they were bottom three in runs per game in the entire major leagues last year. They had one of their worst offensive seasons in franchise history last year. And a lot went into that, but
just based off that alone, you could make an argument that he's the MVP of the AL. Just based off that argument alone.
And, just based on what's happened so far in this Dodgers series. Last night, it was really a pitcher's duel. They went back and forth. into the extra innings. Dodgers score 2 runs in the 11th. The Yankees have a valid attempt at a comeback, but it falls a little bit short. Dodgers win 2-1. Tonight, it was a close game going into the 8th, but the Dodgers have extended their lead. Both games without Juan Soto. Dodgers are going to win tonight. We'll see if the Yankees can salvage a game tomorrow. But the offense just doesn't operate in the same way when Juan Soto is not in the lineup. And we haven't been able to see this yet, but now we have. You can make the argument that Juan Soto is earning himself a contract right now with the Yankees losing these games to the Dodgers without him even playing. And that contract, you can make the argument, should start with a 6. So with everything that he's done, with how he lengthens out their lineup, with what he and Judge are doing as a left-handed, right-handed duo back-to-back in the lineup, is something that we haven't really seen since Lou Gehrig, Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio. Like, all the way back to those guys. They're doing similar stuff to what those guys did. And although it was a totally different time in baseball, that just speaks to how great Juan Soto and how important he is. And with the fact that you've got, if you're the Yankees, anywhere between $90 and $100 million coming off the books, possibly in the offseason with Gleyber Torres, probably gone after this year. Verdugo's on a 1-year deal, so he'll probably be a rental given that they have Dominguez, so they really don't need Verdugo, although he's been really good at defensively this year in left field. Who knows what happens with Stanton? I mean, he's having a decent rebound year, but they could absolutely make a move on him if they want to after this year. We don't know about LeMahieu. He's really not the same player that he was 3 or 4 years ago. He's had injuries. They could make a move on him as well. They have some other free agents that they may or may not re-sign. But given the extra space that you're going to have, you have to re-sign Juan Soto. Because he will be, if he does in fact get to free agency, he will be by far and away the best thing on the market in this free agent period. I'll real quick read you some stats, and then we'll move on. Through his age 24 season, so coming into this season, before he played his first game with the Yankees, he had a 284 career batting average, a 946 OPS, and a 157 OPS plus. Those are numbers that are better than Frank Thomas and Hank Aaron. His 30.5 offensive WAR ranks 12th all-time for his age. So in wins above replacement, he's 12th all-time in the history of baseball at this point in his career. And he's coming into the season, he had 640 walks, which are the most all-time ever of any player through his age 24 season. And then you add on the fact that he could potentially win an MVP this year. It's just everything. It's a complete sweet buy. All right. This is an interesting question that'll get you thinking, but I have an answer to it. You may or may not agree. Most disappointing season so far. We've got 3 choices. These are all playoff teams from last year, one of which was in the World Series. The Toronto Blue Jays, 31-33, tied for last in the American League East with the Tampa Bay Rays right now. 13 and a half games back of the New York Yankees. Houston Astros, 29-35, third in their division, only 6 games back of the Seattle Mariners, but certainly not, I think, the start we expected from the Astros. And then the Arizona Diamondbacks, 30-34, 4th place right now in the NL West behind the Giants, the Padres, and the Dodgers. Who, in your opinion, has had the most disappointing season so far?
Well, for me, I honestly immediately rule out the Astros. Astros, and here's why. I personally just think the Astros struggling right now is more about them just being bored of the regular season. I mean, we see this in just about every American sport. A team that's dominant and has been to as many, Final Four, conference finals, whatever appearances as the Astros have in a row. You get to, these early months of the season and you're just like, what the fuck are we even playing for, man? I want to play in October. Can we just skip to August already? Like, if you told me right now that the Astros finished at like 88 wins, got into the wild card, and are back in the ALCS, I mean, not only would I not be surprised, I would bet on that. I would legitimately bet on that, depending on the odds, of course. But I still feel very confident in that team, which is just the whole point of that whole loop around I just did. But so between the Diamondbacks and the Blue Jays, I mean, with the Blue Jays, isn't this kind of what we expected? I mean, and if you didn't expect it, why didn't you expect it? Like, this is who they are, man. They're just mid, and like they're mid in the most frustrating way possible. I'm like, you have these star players, you have these big names. You went on free agency, you grab George Springer, and just nothing has happened. You've made no headway in terms of winning playoff series and competing for the World Series. It just hasn't been that. So to me, I look at the Diamondbacks as the disappointing team, personally, just because of what we thought of this young core, the pitching of Zach Gallen, the emergence of I think it's Brandon Fott. I forget his first name, but whatever. Either way, I mean, that pitching staff was, after that playoff run that they had, and really just all of last year, regarded as one of the best in baseball. And they haven't been the problem, but they also just haven't been able to win these tight games. Now, it was kind of like this last year at certain points too. I remember they kind of had like, the cold streak. I think it was like mid to late July, and then they just got hot again. So I'm not, selling my stock in this team at all, but they definitely do need to figure some things out and fast.
I actually disagree with you. I in theory agree with you on the Astros. I put them in here just because they have been underwhelming so far. But out of the three, I don't think they're the most disappointing. I do, in theory, also agree with you on the fact I would not be surprised if they end up back in the postseason. I don't know that I would bet on them to make it all the way back to the American League Championship Series super confidently. And I know that sounds pretty insane given their track record, but Kyle Tucker's hurt. Christian Javier done for the season with Tommy John surgery. And they're still waiting on, a couple other guys, McCullers, to come back from Tommy John. And even then, we don't know what he's going to look like. I agree with you on the Astros. I just wouldn't so confidently say I think they're going to end up back in the ALCS at this moment in time, although that could change in a month. I do, however, think the Blue Jays are the most disappointing here so far for a couple reasons. Number one, I don't think it's fair to say that this is what we expected from them, because we had them ranked in our top 10 preseason in our power rankings. And I certainly, maybe you did in your mind, but I certainly did not expect them to be last in this division behind the Red Sox, tied with the Rays, 13 and a half games back of the division lead with all the talent that they have. And even though the Diamondbacks are fourth right now in their division, they're only a game and a half back at second place. So while they're probably not catching the Dodgers, I mean, who's going to catch the Dodgers? Maybe the Phillies will be better in terms of regular season, but nobody's going to catch the Dodgers, not even the Padres or the Giants, most likely. But at this time last year, we didn't think that the Diamondbacks were going to be a World Series team. They were probably hanging around somewhere similar to where they are right now, hanging around 500-ish. So in my opinion, I still have faith that they'll be able to get back up to second in their division, make the playoffs, and then maybe play their best baseball at the right time like they did last year. Although they're not going to sneak up on people like they did last year because everyone knows kind of who they are now. But I just kind of view it differently in that Diamondbacks young core, that was their first run at this last year. And so, and in that run, they already accomplished more than this Toronto Blue Jays young core that's been together now for 4 or 5 years. And both times they've gotten to the playoffs, they've been swept in the wild card. I just think with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who everyone thought was going to be potentially a top of the league AL MVP kind of candidate, with Bo Bichette, who's supposed to be what Anthony Volpe is right now, but hasn't been anywhere close to that, with George Springer having a pretty much a down year, and I'll give you the numbers here in a second, with their offensive numbers being severely underwhelming for how much star power this team has. They're 21st in batting average as a team. They're 22nd in OPS, so they really don't hit for power either. They're 25th in homers. Their bullpen's terrible. They're 29th in ERA. They're 30th in home runs per 9 innings given up. They're 27th in strikeouts. They're 19th in whip, walks and hits allowed per inning. It just hasn't been good. Their starting pitching's been okay, but to be sitting at 31 and 33, tied for last in the American League East, with really nothing to be hopeful for unless Bo Bichette and George Springer and some of these other guys can return to form and kind of flip a switch. I expected better from the Blue Jays. I thought they would at least be competing with the Orioles and the Yankees for the division. I certainly didn't think they'd be worse than the Boston Red Sox, but give the Red Sox credit for kind of hanging around 500, maybe a little bit above so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, all fair points. All fair points. I definitely see where you're coming from there. I mean, I definitely didn't see them as last in their division at this point in the season either. But I think the angle for me was more so just I feel like Vladdy Guerrero Jr. My opinion on him has changed quite a bit, and I think he's just we thought he was like this generational talent, and I don't want to kick a guy while he's down. Of course, he's not terrible or anything. He's good, but he's not what they need. When you mention the power numbers, them not hitting home runs, to me that's Vladdy Jr. and George Springer. That's who you point to as being the guys in the lineup that are supposed to strike fear in their opponent, and they just don't.
Yeah. Vladdy really hasn't been their issue. Power has kind of been zapped. only 7 home runs so far this season. He's actually batting close to 300. But the fact that he's batting close to 300 and the Blue Jays are very below average offensively, pretty much almost every category, speaks to the struggles of the guys around him. Bo Bichette, George Springer, and some of the others that you would think would be better than they are currently. With the Diamondbacks, it's probably just that I have more faith right now that they can get back into position to at least get in the playoffs and be dangerous than I do the Blue Jays given their positioning. But could be wrong.
Yeah,
all right.
I actually didn't look at the standings before this pod, but like, how far back are they of the wild card spot? I'm curious.
That's a good question. I know where each team stands in their respective divisions. And although, I think the Diamondbacks are 8.5, 9.5 back of the Dodgers right now. I don't know what the wild card looks like. So right now the Blue Jays 2 games back of the wild card. That's actually fairly surprising to me. And the Diamondbacks 1.5 back of the wild card. So both are like still in relatively good positioning to, one good week could put them in the playoffs. But I don't know. As a team, I have more faith in Arizona's talent than I do Toronto's. But that's that question.
I would agree with that.
I knew that would, generate good conversation.
Definitely.
All right. Next question here. So, unfortunately, Ronald Acuna Jr. has gone down again with a torn ACL on May 26th. Hope for a fast and speedy recovery for him. We saw the Braves 2 years ago win the World Series, though, without him. Not to say they'll do it again, but what do they need to do to make another World Series run without Acuna? And notice I did not say what do they need to do to win another World Series without Acuna. I just said make a run at it. So, in your opinion, what do you think they need to do?
Well, to me, it's just more about getting hot at the right time. I think this team more or less like already has the power, like the talent to get this thing done. I truly believe that. The key for me will just be, their ace guys and their starting pitching staff. They've got to, they've got to pitch like that. They got to give them length when it comes to the playoffs. Like, you look at that Philly series, can't remember his freaking name. You know the guy. Their ace got multiple times in that series. Really flipped the series because you have your ace in for whatever game it is. You usually put those guys in for the important games in a series. So when they're not able to, get you a win when you need one, I mean, it's just going to be tough to win in the playoffs like that, especially when you have the salary allotted that they do to that pitching staff. So the offense to me is already, locked in and good, ready to go, man. It's more about just delivering, man. Just delivering in the playoffs. They can be anybody anytime. It's just all about just getting in the right frame of mind and just getting hot. Like August, September, October.
Yeah, they're already kind of gutted because Spencer Strider goes down after 2 starts with Tommy John. And then you have the Acuna. You have the Acuna. Yeah, that run of arm injuries we had at the beginning of the season, which is another completely other conversation for another day. He was part of that. He's their young ace. That, of course, does not help. And then Acuna going down, of course, as a top 5 player in the major leagues, no doubt about it, also doesn't help. What do they need to do to make another World Series run? Well, I would make an argument they need to try to avoid the Phillies until the championship series, if at all possible, because that's kind of been, in my opinion, their bugaboo the past couple of years when they have not made that World Series run. The Phillies have been a pain in the ass to the Braves.
Yeah.
So I'd argue, if at all possible, however the seeding works out, and it's probably not totally in their control, avoid the Phillies as well as they're playing right now, and as well as I expect them to play as long as they stay healthy until the championship series if you can. That would help them in getting to the making a World Series run. Although you're probably going to have to face the Dodgers. You're going to have to face one of the two before then. So it's not going to be easy. I think they need a little bit more power, and they can certainly start hitting for more power at any time. They have the talent, even without Acuna, to do it. But right now, Austin Riley, although he's having a good year at the plate with a 301, actually not really having a great year at the plate for his standards, a 234 batting average with a 304 on base, which isn't terrible, but only a 356 slugs and 3 home runs. That's certainly not what I expected from a all-star caliber third baseman. And they need some more power generated from Orlando Arcia and Ozzy Albies, in the top and the middle of that lineup. Marcell Ozuna, in terms of power, has really been their best guy, and he's having a pretty resurgent season for his age. He's got 18 home runs. He's batting .316 with a 391 on base and a 618 slug. That's really good. And Acuna, up until when he got hurt, was batting .250 with a 350 on base, a 365 slugging percentage. So not great for his standards, but he was still a plus player. But up and down the lineup, they're not hitting as many home runs as maybe I thought. I think they need to hit for a little bit more power. Their pitching, actually, even without Spencer Strider, has been good enough to win in the postseason. And knowing the Braves and how aggressive they have been, they'll go out and get 1 or 2 more arms to help them down the stretch of the season. Maybe add another middle of the rotation arm. But Chris Sale has had a resurgence. He's got a 3.01 ERA coming off multiple injuries. He's arguably been their best starter so far this season. Max Fried has been really good, but he needs to stay healthy. Max Fried definitely needs to stay healthy. In fact, if you're in good enough positioning, if you're the Braves, down the stretch, I would even go as far as to like Phantom IL. This is something that a lot of teams do across the league. Maybe, coming into and out of the All-Star break, going into the All-Star break and coming out of the All-Star break, middle of July-ish, you give Max Fried like a 15-day IL stint on either side of that, just to give him rest him up for the stretch run.
Yeah.
Make up an injury, a calf strain, whatever it might be. This is something that MLB wants to stop, but a lot of teams do it to kind of give their players rest, even when they might be banged up. They might say they're banged up. You have to get doctor's approval to actually do it. But like the Braves can survive if Max Fried, misses 1, 2, maybe even 3 starts in their rotation. They'll be good enough still to where they're in the playoffs. And having him rested and healthy for the postseason is the most important thing.
Yeah. And you got to hope that the Dodgers and the Phillies play each other and almost like just kill each other. Yeah. And then you face off against the, whoever's left.
But they're pitching, Charlie Morton. He's on the He's in the twilight of his career, but he's been good. It's like a number 3 or 4 starter. Ronaldo Lopez has kind of been a revelation so far. He's pitched 63 innings, 1.85 ERA. So they still have the pitching depth. Of course, having Strider would help significantly because the other two teams look like they're going to have some version of an ace, right? We know about what the Phillies rotation has done with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola as their one.
Ranger Suarez is doing this year.
And Ranger Suarez being kind of a NL Cy Young candidate at this point. And then we obviously know Yamamoto has been a great addition. Kershaw's coming back soon. The Dodgers have guys at the top of their rotation too.
Walker Buehler.
He's not the same as he was, but he's still very good. Pitching, I don't worry about so much with the Braves. It's going to be, does that offense round into form in time? That's really what it comes down to. All right, we're at the 52-minute mark, so let's speed through these last 2 or 3 questions. 2 buy or sells here. Buy or sell. The Baltimore Orioles must acquire starting pitching at the trade deadline to compete for a World Series. And I asked this question because, unfortunately, John Means and Tyler Wells have both gone down with season-ending Tommy John. So, buy or sell? Just real quick. Do you buy or sell that?
Man, I struggle with that question because I still think their lineup is good enough to where, like I said, if they get hot at the right time, nobody is pitching to that group of 9, man. That lineup doesn't have holes, man. It doesn't. And obviously, like, you need the pitching to bring it in the playoffs. Obviously, you don't want to have to be winning shootouts or whatever. But man, like, if there was ever the team to kind of overcome this, it would probably be the Orioles, man. But I'm still gonna buy just because of what we saw last year in the playoffs, I guess. And I mean, it's hard to win in the playoffs when you've got starting pitchers on the IL. You gotta replace those guys somehow. That's the bottom line. It's possible to do it. There's plenty of other examples of teams doing it at the deadline, finding guys and them coming in and making a huge impact. But I think for the Orioles, this is the year you be aggressive. You're a year into this thing in terms of being contenders, and yeah, I mean that's enough. That says enough right there.
Yeah, for me, it's a sell. The Orioles don't have to do anything if they don't want to. I mean, they can keep it like it is, even with those 2 guys out. They're still been very good. Plenty good enough to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything to their starting pitching rotation if they don't want to. I mean, the rotation is already deep and very good without John Means and Tyler Wells. It was even deeper with them, but it's still very good. I mean, Corbin Burns is exactly what they thought they were going to get and hoping to get when they traded for him. He's been their ace. That's something they didn't have last year. They didn't have a true ace who's pitched in the playoffs before. They have that now. Grayson Rodriguez and Kyle Bradish have been very good, numbers 2 and numbers 3 in that rotation. So they have a very good top 3, a top 3 that I think right now can compete with the Guardians, compete with the Yankees, and maybe any other team you want to throw in that group of contenders. And then to add on to that, you still have guys like Cole Irvin and Albert Suarez who have kind of been revelations for them. They've been better than they've expected. And you're going to have Dean Kremer coming off the injury list. He's on the injury list right now with some kind of triceps injury, but he'll be back sooner rather than later. And so that's 6 guys right there, even without John Means and Tyler Wells, that can get the job done. And really in the postseason, You really only need 3, maybe 4 of those guys to be good enough to win you playoff games. And with this offense, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. That's why I sell. But the caveat is if you don't go out and kind of reinforce this rotation, and you don't even have to get like a top end arm. It doesn't have to be like a number 1 or a number 2. But if it comes playoff time and it ends up that for whatever reason your pitching depth hurts you in a way, you're going to regret not making a move at the deadline.
Yeah.
And so I think, no, they don't have to do anything if they don't want to with their current situation and with how good their bullpen is. But they probably should just in case. All right, let's move on.
And that's what makes this question interesting because I agreed with everything you just said, but I still said buy just because
I'm
a fan of whenever you have an opportunity to go out and get improvements to any part of your team, you do it. So
yeah, I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But if they were to say, like, these guys are great, we don't need another starter.
Yeah.
I mean,
I understand that too.
Maybe they just go out and add to their strength, which is offense and bullpen. I mean, their starting pitching's good, but when I think of the Orioles, I don't associate them with their starting pitching being elite, right? It's their offense, how good it is top to bottom, and their bullpen, especially the back end, being lights out. That's what I think about when I think about the Orioles. So, yes, in theory, they're probably going to go out and get another guy or two. That's the smart move. Reinforcing it, even if you don't think it's going to hurt you come playing time, is the smart thing to do for an office-wise. But they don't want to do anything. They don't have to do anything with their current situation. I mean, it's plenty good enough.
Yeah.
Buy or sell. This is a kind of a 2-part. So you can buy the whole thing. You can buy part of it. You can sell the other part. Again, another question that goes multiple ways here. The Seattle Mariners will win the AL West this season. However, the Mariners will not be legitimate, forgot to add in that word, legitimate World Series contenders unless they acquire some offensive firepower at the deadline. Buy or sell?
I mean, I buy that. I mean, I think so. Before this season started, I went into a bit of like psycho mode in terms of being high on the Mariners, and like I think that was a little bit short sighted. But like even so, like this team with how good their pitching is, I think 1 or 2 moves here and there at the deadline, like that's really all that needs to be done, man. I really do feel that way. Just 1 or 2 bats here and there that are just gonna add some pop, man. Like their offense, like they're able to tie things together pretty well in terms of they don't leave runners in scoring position, out like too often. Like I think they're like middle of the pack somewhere in there in terms of that. But just if they can just improve that part of it, I think that will be enough. Because we saw a team like the Diamondbacks last year that didn't have an incredible amount of power go all the way to the World Series just off the strength of just timely hits and I think they had a teamwork in terms of their offense as well that was really well done as well. Like just with their bunts, sack flies, whatever it may be, they made the plays needed to be done to bring runs in. And I think if the Mariners can just do that, they have a chance, an outside chance.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're in agreement here. I do think they will win the ALS. However, I do think one of 2 teams, the Rangers or the Astros, will make it difficult for them near the end of the season in the months of August and September. I do think one of those two teams, if not both, will keep it close enough to where it's interesting down the stretch. But I do think the Mariners have, not knowing what Scherzer, DeGrom might look like when they come back here fairly soon. Maybe they're great, and that could change this conversation, but we don't know that for sure. I think with the Mariners pitching right now, I like in their bullpen, which is nasty. I like them to hold on to this division and to win it. I do think they need one or two bats at the deadline, as you said. I think what they need is the Luis Castillo addition. What he was to their pitching, they need that for their offense. Like they just need another middle of the lineup guy who has power, but isn't reliant upon his power. And I do think like we're going to see some positive regression. We're going to see Julio Rodriguez get going here fairly soon. We both thought he would potentially be an MVP candidate. He really hasn't been that at all so far up until this point. They have some other guys who I like. I like Cal Raleigh, who's had a good year. I like Dylan Moore, who's a younger guy. I like J.P. Crawford. I can't give you a name right now, but they're going to need someone, a bat or two, to lengthen out this lineup a little bit. And guys who have power and can tap into that, but aren't going to be necessarily home run hitters. They need I'm trying to think of a name that would be great for Seattle. I just can't think of it right now. Maybe it'll come to me.
I think a name that pops in my head, and this might be kind of stupid considering how he's played this year, but I might give the Cardinals a call. Maybe see what you can give for Arenado.
Yeah, someone like that who's experienced, who still gives you some value defensively, definitely.
Not this year,
but isn't relying upon homers and really never has been.
Right.
But with runners in scoring position in the postseason, and this is not a shot at Luke Raley or Dylan Moore, but do you want Dylan Moore at the plate or do you want all-time great Nolan Arenado at the plate? I'm just asking. It's a fair thing to wonder.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would buy that. But maybe not the start. Maybe you or even I thought, but 36-30, 5 games up in your division, certainly we'll take that more than not.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's been very good so far for Seattle. All right, let's wrap this thing up. I don't have a lower third for the question, but forgot to make one. But it is an interesting conversation. The last question we have here, and try to give a somewhat brief answer, but if you can.
Yeah.
Is MLB facing, with the recent news of multiple suspensions and a lifetime ban, are they facing a real problem here or a reckoning with legalized gambling? And if so, is there anything they can do about it? It's a loaded question. It's an open-ended one, but I guess take it where you may.
To me, the answer is probably no. Even though it's been a run of players getting lifetime bans here recently, I think the players that take their job and their responsibility as a major league baseball player, professional athlete, the players that understand that, they won't be in part of gambling. They understand that. I mean, it's not rocket science. I think for the MLB, I think they've done the right things. They've been very clear about you bet, you get a lifetime ban. And that's just kind of it. And I think players hopefully will shy away from that. You probably know more than I would, to be honest, in this type of conversation, just because I haven't been a baseball fan for that long, and outside of this season, I don't really know what their policy would be for those types of things, like suspension wise.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. In principle, I think I agree. I don't know if I'd call this a reckoning yet, but I kind of maybe liken it to, like, by no means yet am I yelling fire in a crowded theater, but it's kind of like
You're
await.
yelling smoke, like
No,
it's
it's
hot.
maybe it's getting warmer. There are some conditions that may be conducive to starting a fire. But the analogy I was going to maybe use is like, and I've done this multiple times, even in the past week, where I wake up a couple moments before my alarm is set to go off, and I just kind of like stay in bed, toss and turn, keep sleeping until that dreaded alarm goes off for me to get out of bed and start getting ready for work. It's kind of like that. Like the alarm isn't going off yet, but I mean, if
But it's
enough
coming.
happens, it
All right,
might
I
be
like
coming.
that. Get in your Colin Cowherd bag. All right.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Uh, we'll have to dive into maybe the minutia of this another day, another conversation once we have more of a sample size. But it is something worth mentioning. Like, it is in the news, and I think the ruling in 2018 from the Supreme Court that legalized sports gambling in 38 states, I think brings about issues. And it's not only been baseball that we've seen this. We've seen a couple examples in the NBA. We've even seen examples, unfortunately, in
In
the
the NFL.
NFL.
Yeah.
So to call it a reckoning right now is probably a little far. But it's the way that I wanted to phrase the question to get a good conversation going. Um, the worst part for any of these guys in any of these sports that are gambling is gambling on the outcomes of your own games. That's where you really get into a situation where these guys really should be suspended indefinitely or banned lifetime, which is, I think, the MLB's policy. If you bet on your own team's games, you're banned indefinitely. We've seen that throughout MLB history. A couple more examples going back to the 1940s and 50s. And I kind of like that rule, but I don't know enough either to know like the minutia of each and every rule.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot more that goes into this. And we could probably, maybe on a Patreon episode, address this conversation when we're more informed, but from a broader perspective, not just baseball, but all sports. Like, we've seen a couple examples in each. Let's try to drill down into this conversation and figure this thing out. Because it is kind of the alarm isn't going off yet, but the fact that we've now seen this in all three sports in the past 2 or 3 years, slightly concerning. I mean, is that fair to say? I don't know.
Yeah. You raise your eyebrows a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
It is what it is. Yeah. As long as it's not happening on my team, I mean.
I live in the state of Texas. We both live in the state of Texas, right? I mean, I have like probably all the coworkers that are my age have a bookie that they're betting through. So
Yeah.
like, even though it's illegal in our state, people still find ways to bet. That's the scary part with it. Like, even
Yeah.
with these rules, even with as tight regulations as you can have, there's still risk just because of bookies and different shit like that.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, that's all our questions for today. Great conversation. If you're looking for more baseball content, which I mean, some of you might be, given that there's 7 people watching this right now.
Appreciate y'all, man.
We will have absolutely. We will have more baseball content coming near the end of June, probably more so early July, when we're doing our All-Star ballots for the All-Star game. We're approaching mid-season. We'll do some other stuff in there. We'll probably do another power rankings. So I'd look at late June, most likely early July for your next Major League Baseball episode. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We'll be back relatively soon with Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Leave in the comments your answers to any or all of these questions. We'd love to know.
I think all 7 of you are watching on Twitter. So if you got time, head over to our YouTube, subscribe to the channel. We would really appreciate that. That's like our main, I guess, channel out of, all the social medias that we're on. That's the main one that we're always posting on. So if you could head over there and subscribe, that would be really appreciated, as well as all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen, we're there. Whatever you're willing to do.
Absolutely. And remember, we do live shows. So if you go to our YouTube page, go to the live section. That's where you'll find most of our content. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for spending part of your Saturday night with us. And we'll see you in the next 30 minutes for Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. Thank you. Enjoy this weekend of baseball, and we will see you next time. Peace out.